Welcome to this channel, a space where we transform words into knowledge. Here you will find long summaries of audiobooks designed to inspire you, challenge you, and help you reach your full potential. Our goal is to provide you with practical tools and deep knowledge that will propel you towards a fuller and more successful life. Today we will explore The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This fascinating book reveals how habits shape our lives and how we can redesign them to achieve our goals. From scientific research to true stories, Duhigg shows us that habits do not control us. We can control them. Get ready for a transformative journey. Subscribe, ring the bell, and join me as we discover how habits can become our most powerful tool for change. Chapter 1. The Habit Loop: How Habits Work. Habits are not your destiny. They are tools that you can redesign. Have you ever stopped to think about why you do the things you do, often without realizing it? According to Charles Duhigg, up to 40% of our daily actions are not conscious decisions, but habits. These automatic patterns help us save mental energy, but they can also trap us in behaviors we don't want. This is where the concept of the habit loop comes in, a powerful tool that helps us understand how they form and how they can be transformed. This cycle consists of three essential parts. The cue: this is the trigger, the spark that activates the habit. It can be something external, like the phone ringing, or internal, like a thought or an emotion. The routine: this is the action we take in response to the cue. It can be physical, mental, or emotional. The reward: this is what the brain gets as a result of the routine. It can be emotional relief, a feeling of satisfaction, or even a simple distraction. Duhigg shares the experience of a man named Eugene, whose brain suffered severe damage after an illness. Despite losing the ability to remember new facts, Eugene developed habits that allowed him to perform daily tasks like walking around his neighborhood or finding food at home. How was this possible? His brain, though impaired, was still able to form new habits through the cue routine reward cycle. This teaches us something important. Habits don't depend on our conscious memory, but on a deeper part of the brain. And that part responds to this cycle. Picture this. Every afternoon, you feel a dip in energy, the cue. Maybe you associate it with a time, like 3 o'clock at the office. Without thinking too much, you walk to the vending machine and buy a candy bar or a sugary drink, the routine. The reward is that immediate feeling of satisfaction and renewed, albeit temporary, energy. But what if you want to break this cycle? Here's the key: you can't eliminate the cue or the reward, but you can change the routine. For example, when you feel tired, you might choose to get up, take a quick walk, or drink water instead of sugar. The reward would be the same, an energy boost, but this time a healthy one. How habits are strengthened. A habit is reinforced every time we complete the cycle. Each repetition strengthens a connection in our brain, making it more automatic. But the interesting thing is that as the brain learns to associate the cue with the reward, we begin to anticipate that reward before performing the routine. That's why, many times, we feel a need or craving even before we act. Here's an example. Have you ever felt the need to check your phone even though it hasn't rung? That's your brain anticipating the reward of seeing a message, a like, or a notification. This habit has become so reinforced that you no longer need an actual cue. Your brain automatically triggers it. Why is this knowledge important? Understanding the habit loop empowers us. As Duhigg says, habits are not an inevitable fate. They are tools that we can redesign. By observing your patterns, you can identify the cues that trigger your habits and consciously choose a new routine. Here's a thought. Close your eyes for a moment. Think of a habit you'd like to change. What do you think is the cue that triggers it? What routine do you perform? And what reward do you get? Now, imagine a new routine you could try the next time the cue is triggered. Remember, change doesn't happen overnight, but with practice and repetition, any habit can be redesigned. The emotional connection. Isn't it fascinating how something as small as a stimulus can trigger such deep patterns in our lives? But it's also encouraging to know that we have the power to intervene in this process. Changing a habit isn't just about stopping doing something. It's a process of rediscovery, of learning how your mind works, and of consciously building the life you want. Now I'll give you a challenge. Today, pay attention to your habits. Pick one and watch it get activated. Write down on a piece of paper the following. What triggered it? The cue. What did you do? The routine. How did you feel afterwards? The reward. From there, design a different small action that you can try tomorrow. This chapter introduces us to one of the most transformative concepts in the book, the habit loop. It's a simple, yet powerful tool that allows us to understand why we do what we do and how we can redesign it. If one thing is clear, it's that we are not trapped by our habits. We have the ability to observe them, understand them, and change them one step at a time. So, the next time you're acting on autopilot, stop for a moment and ask yourself, what cue triggered me? What can I do differently? Chapter 2. The Brain Craves Reward. Why it's hard to change. A habit is reinforced by the anticipation of reward. Have you ever found yourself craving something even before you know exactly what it is? That feeling of wanting, of needing, is the engine that drives many of our habits. Charles Duhigg explains that the real power of a habit lies not in the action itself, but in the anticipated craving for the reward that our brain has learned to associate with that action. Habits form because our brain automatically seeks reward. And it's this expectation that leads us to repeat cycles of cue, routine, and reward even when we know the action may not benefit us. How reward drives habits. The human brain is wired to seek rewards. When we experience something pleasurable like a sweet treat or a sense of accomplishment, our brain releases dopamine, a chemical that reinforces the behavior that produced it. But what's more interesting is that over time, our brain not only seeks out the reward, but also anticipates that feeling before it happens. Here's a practical example. Think about a common habit, like drinking coffee in the morning. At first, you might have started drinking coffee because it gave you energy to start your day. But now, just by smelling the coffee or hearing the coffee maker, your brain already starts releasing dopamine, making you crave that reward before you even take the first sip. This anticipatory desire is what makes the habit stick. Duhigg tells the story of Claude Hopkins, a dentist in the early 20th century, who revolutionized the habit of brushing your teeth by incorporating a key element, a sensory reward. Before Hopkins, very few people in the United States brushed their teeth regularly. Hopkins introduced the idea of freshness, a sensation in the mouth after brushing, as a reward. It wasn't just about having clean teeth, but about experiencing a refreshed mouth. This change created an anticipatory craving for that freshness, transforming brushing into a universal habit. Do you see how a small reward can transform a seemingly insignificant habit into something automatic? The same thing happens with many of our everyday behaviors. The challenge of changing a habit. Why is it so hard to change a habit? Because the brain still craves the reward associated with the old routine. Even if we remove the action, the craving remains. This explains why quitting smoking, eating less sugar, or cutting back on phone use can be so tricky. We're not just fighting a routine, but the craving that drives it. Here's an everyday example. Let's say you're trying to cut back on the time you spend on social media. When you sit down in front of your phone, the cue, perhaps a notification, triggers an automatic routine, opening the app. The reward is the satisfaction of seeing something new or interacting with others. Even if you decide to delete the app, the craving for the reward may lead you to find another way to fill that void, such as aimlessly scrolling through your photo gallery. How to redirect cravings into positive habits. The good news is that we don't need to eliminate cravings, but rather redirect them. This means finding a new routine that offers the same reward. Here's a practical exercise. Think of a habit you want to change. Analyze what reward you're seeking. For example, do you want to relax, feel productive, or simply distract yourself? Try a new routine that offers a similar reward. If you're eager for a break at work, instead of reaching for something sweet, go for a quick walk or chat with a colleague. At gyms across the United States, many trainers recommend beginners associate exercise with immediate rewards, such as listening to motivating music or enjoying a healthy smoothie after a workout. Although the true reward of exercise, better health and well-being, takes weeks to appear, these small, immediate rewards help build the habit. Think of a habit you have right now. Maybe it's checking your phone constantly, eating a specific meal when you're stressed, or drinking coffee several times a day. Ask yourself, what reward am I really seeking? How can I redirect that desire into a more positive action? Remember that changing a habit doesn't mean eliminating what makes you feel good, but rather finding healthier and more productive ways to satisfy that same desire. How this knowledge changes your perspective. Knowing that our brains crave rewards is empowering. We're not stuck in our habits, we can redesign them. It all starts with observation, understanding what cue triggers your habit and what reward you're seeking. From there, change is possible. Today, pick a habit you want to change and write this down. The cue that triggers it, the current routine, the reward you seek. From there, design a new routine that offers a similar reward. Try this new action the next time you face the cue. This chapter teaches us something crucial. Habits are built and sustained by the desire for a reward. But this knowledge isn't just a fun fact. It's a tool you can use to redirect your habits towards something that benefits you. Think about this. Every time you are faced with a cue, you have the power to choose. You can stick to your usual routine, or you can try something new, something that brings you closer to your goals, not further away from them. Chapter 3. Replacing a habit, the key to transformation. You can't erase a habit, but you can change it. Have you ever tried to quit a habit and felt frustrated that you couldn't? You're not alone. According to Charles Duhigg, habits don't go away completely because they are hardwired into our brains. There's good news, though. You don't need to delete them, just redirect them. The secret to changing a habit is replacing the routine, while keeping the cue and reward intact. Why we can't erase habits. Habits are deeply ingrained in our brains, specifically in a region called the basal ganglia, which stores these patterns like mental shortcuts. When we try to eliminate a habit, our brain keeps looking for the associated reward, which makes it so hard to leave it behind. But here's the key point. Although habits can't be erased, they can be reprogrammed. This means that you can replace the routine with a new action, leaving the cue and reward intact. Here's a practical example. Imagine that every time you feel stressed at work, the cue, you tend to reach for a cookie or an unhealthy snack, the routine. The reward is a temporary feeling of relief or satisfaction. Instead of fighting the habit completely, you could replace the routine with something more beneficial, such as having a cup of tea or going for a short walk. The cue and reward remain, but the action changes. Inspiring story, Alcoholics Anonymous. Duhigg offers us a fascinating and powerful example, the success of Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. This program helps millions of people around the world to stop drinking using the principle of substitution. The cue, a feeling of stress, loneliness, or desire for social connection. The original routine, drinking alcohol. The new routine, attending AA meetings, where participants find support and understanding. The reward, a sense of belonging and emotional relief. By replacing the destructive routine with positive action, the habit cycle is maintained, but the participant's life improves significantly. If a program as successful as AA uses habit replacement, we too can apply it in our daily lives to transform our own patterns. How to replace a habit step by step. Replacing a habit takes practice, but the process is simpler than it sounds. Here's a guide. Identify the cue. Notice what triggers your habit. It could be a time of day, an emotion, a place, or even a person. Recognize the reward. Ask yourself what benefit you're getting from the current routine. It could be relief, distraction, pleasure, or energy. Change the routine. Introduce a new action that offers you a similar reward. Here's an example. Let's say you have a habit of constantly checking your phone while you work. Cue, boredom or mental block. The current routine is to pick up the phone, and the reward is a brief feeling of relief or disconnection. How do you change it? You could replace that routine with getting up from your desk and stretching or getting a glass of water. The reward is still a break, but now you're incorporating a more productive behavior. Bonus story, habits in sports. Duhigg also tells the story of Tony Dungy, a football coach who turned around losing teams by focusing on changing basic habits. Dungy didn't ask his players to learn complex strategies, but instead focused on replacing old routines during games. The signal, the opposing team's position. The new routine, responding automatically with a simple, effective play. The reward, increased confidence and better results. This approach not only improved the team's performance, but also created a winning mindset. The emotional challenge of replacing a habit. Changing a habit doesn't just involve adjusting behaviors, but also dealing with emotions. Many times, our current routines are deeply connected to how we feel. For example, stress eating can be related to the need for comfort, and abandoning that routine can make you feel uncomfortable at first. Here's a tip. When trying to replace a habit, give yourself permission to make mistakes. Change doesn't happen overnight, but with persistence and self-compassion, new habits begin to take hold. Listener reflection. Close your eyes for a moment and think of a habit you'd like to change. Maybe it's stopping procrastinating, improving your diet, or cutting back on social media. Ask yourself, what cue triggers this habit? What reward am I seeking? What different action could I try that would give me that same reward? Remember, changing a habit doesn't mean giving up what makes you feel good, but rather finding a healthier, more productive way to get it. How this knowledge transforms your life. The habit substitution principle is a powerful tool because it frees us from the idea that we're stuck in negative patterns. Instead of trying to eliminate a habit, which is often frustrating and ineffective, we can redirect our actions towards something that actually benefits us. Today, choose a habit you want to transform. Write down on a piece of paper the following: the cue that triggers it, the current routine, the reward you get. Then, design a new routine that you can try the next time the cue is triggered. Do it with curiosity, without judgment, and see how your brain responds. Changing a habit isn't a matter of willpower, but of strategy. By keeping the cue and the reward, but redesigning the routine, you can take control of your daily patterns and use them to build the life you want. Chapter 4: Core Habits, Changes that Transform Everything. Some habits have the power to change your entire life. Have you ever wondered why certain small changes seem to trigger a domino effect in your life? Charles Duhigg calls these patterns core habits, and they are so powerful because they act as catalysts, driving improvements in multiple areas. A core habit isn't necessarily complex. In fact, it can be something as simple as starting to exercise regularly, planning your days, or eating mindfully. But the impact of these habits goes far beyond their immediate action. What makes a habit a core habit? A core habit has the ability to spark ripple changes. It triggers indirect improvements in other behaviors. For example, starting to exercise regularly can improve your eating, sleeping, and productivity. Rewire your identity. It reinforces a positive self-image. If you get into the habit of writing down your daily goals, you might start to see yourself as organized and focused. Create an environment of success. By changing one key aspect of your life, you facilitate other positive changes. An inspiring story would be Paul O'Neill and Alcoa. Duhigg recounts how Paul O'Neill turned around Alcoa, a struggling aluminum company, by focusing on a single core habit: improving worker safety. When he came on as CEO, he didn't talk about benefits or productivity, but about his commitment to safety. He implemented new protocols to prevent accidents, and this change had a ripple effect. Workers felt more valued, which boosted morale. Internal communication improved because it was essential to identifying risks. Productivity increased because processes became more efficient. In a short time, the company not only reduced accidents, but also became one of the most profitable in its industry. Core habits don't just transform one aspect of your life, they create an impact that extends to everything you do. Practical example: exercise as a core habit. One of the most cited core habits is regular exercise. Because it not only improves your physical health, but it also affects your mood. You release endorphins that make you feel more positive. Your productivity, you increase your energy and mental clarity. Your discipline, you establish a routine that reinforces other positive habits. Imagine this. You decide to start walking 30 minutes every morning. At first, it may seem like a small change. But over time, you notice that you sleep better, have more energy to work, and make healthier choices with your diet. That initial habit triggered a chain of improvements. How to identify your own core habits. Not all habits have the same impact. To find a core habit in your life, ask yourself, what habit has the potential to influence other areas? What action would make me feel more in control of my day? What small change could improve my overall well-being? Here's an exercise. Make a list of your daily routines. Pick one habit that, when improved, can lead to other positive changes. For example, planning your day each morning, reading 10 minutes before bed to reduce stress, drinking more water to improve your energy. Additional story, core habits in personal life. Duhigg also mentions how core habits can transform everyday life. For example, a family that decides to eat together every night not only improves their communication, but also creates a more connected environment and reduces overall stress. This small change has a disproportionate impact on the quality of life of all members. A core habit doesn't need to be complicated. What matters is their ability to create a ripple effect on your well-being and relationships. Let's think about it. Close your eyes and think, what keystone habit could transform my life? Maybe it's something as simple as getting up early, planning your days, or spending 15 minutes meditating. Don't underestimate the impact of these actions. Remember that, as we saw with Paul O'Neill and Alcoa, a small change can be the start of something extraordinary. The long-term impact of keystone habits. Keystone habits don't just transform what you do, but also how you see yourself. By adopting one, you begin to build an identity aligned with your goals. For example, if you adopt the habit of writing down your goals, you not only become more organized, but you also begin to see yourself as someone disciplined and focused. Today, choose a keystone habit to incorporate into your life. Write on a piece of paper. What will your habit be? What simple actions will you take to maintain it? How do you hope it will influence other areas of your life? Commit to practicing it for a week and watch it start to create positive changes. This chapter teaches us that not all habits are created equal. Core habits have the power to change not only what we do, but also who we are and how we live. By focusing on one keystone habit, you can trigger a transformation that spans multiple aspects of your life. The question now is, which core habit do you choose to start your domino effect? Chapter 5. The Power of Crisis, Opportunities for Change. Crises are not just challenges, they are opportunities to redefine habits. Throughout our lives, we all face crises. They can be financial problems, personal problems, or even global events that disrupt our routine. These situations often bring uncertainty and stress, but they also offer a unique opportunity, the chance to break old patterns and build something new. Charles Duhigg teaches us that crises, though painful, disrupt established habits, creating a space where we can redesign our behavior. If we use this moment wisely, we can transform our lives. How crises disrupt established patterns. Under normal circumstances, our habits operate like an autopilot, guiding our actions without much thought. But a crisis acts as an abrupt break, forcing us out of that automatic mode. This period of disruption, while challenging, is the perfect time to implement changes. Here's a practical example. Think of someone facing a health crisis, such as a diabetes diagnosis. Suddenly, old eating habits are not an option. While the situation is difficult, it also creates a starting point for adopting a healthier diet, exercising, and generally prioritizing well-being. Inspiring story, a company in crisis. Duhigg tells us the story of a company in Rhode Island that faced a severe financial crisis. Leaders knew that continuing to do the same thing was not an option, so they took advantage of the moment to redesign their organizational habits. One of the most important changes was improving internal communication. Before the crisis, decisions were made unilaterally, and employees felt that their opinions did not matter. During the crisis, they implemented open meetings where each member could contribute ideas and feedback. Employees began to feel more valued. Productivity increased as decisions were more collaborative. The company not only emerged from the crisis, but also became a model of innovation and teamwork. Crises can be painful, but they also create an opening to redesign not only our actions, but also the culture around us. How to use a crisis to redesign your personal habits. If you are facing a personal crisis, whether it is a job loss, a health issue, or a major life change, you can use this moment as a catalyst for change. Here are some practical steps to do so. Embrace the disruption. recognize that this crisis has disrupted your normal patterns. Instead of resisting it, embrace the change as an opportunity to reevaluate your habits. Reflect on your priorities. Ask yourself what aspects of your life need improvement or change. A crisis can be the perfect time to rethink what really matters. Choose a positive habit. Decide on a habit that you can implement to turn this situation into a starting point. For example, if you are facing stress, you could start meditating or walking daily to release tension. Imagine someone facing a breakup. Although it is a painful experience, this period can also be an opportunity to develop habits that strengthen your self-esteem, such as learning something new, surrounding yourself with positive friends, or starting a personal project. The power of mindset in times of crisis. A key element to transform a crisis into an opportunity is the mindset with which you face it. Many times, we see crises as the end of something, when in reality they can be the beginning of something better. Make a list of the things you have always wanted to change or improve in your life. Now, choose a small, concrete action that you can start today. For example, if you have always wanted to organize your time better, take advantage of this interruption to start planning your days. If you have felt that you need to take better care of your health, use this moment to establish a more conscious eating habit. Bonus story: habits in times of global crisis. During the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of people faced drastic disruptions to their routines. Although stress and uncertainty were widespread, many people used that time to develop new habits, such as cooking at home, exercising regularly, or spending more time with their families. This shows that even in the midst of adversity, human beings have an incredible capacity to adapt and grow. Reflect on this. Close your eyes for a moment and think about a crisis you have recently faced or are facing now. Ask yourself, what old patterns have been disrupted? What positive habit can I start right now? How can I turn this situation into an opportunity to grow? Remember, you can't control all circumstances, but you can always choose how to respond to them. How this knowledge transforms your perspective. Crises may seem chaotic, but in reality, they are moments of great clarity. They force us to stop, evaluate what we do, and decide where we want to go. By adopting a new habit in times of crisis, you not only adapt, but you also become stronger. Here's a suggestion. Today, write down a list of 3 habits you could implement in the midst of a current or past crisis. Pick one and commit to practicing it for the next week. Watch how this small change begins to transform your life. This chapter teaches us that crises are not just challenges, they are unique opportunities to redefine who we are and how we live. By embracing disruption as a possibility for change, we can emerge from any situation stronger, clearer, and with more purpose. Remember, every crisis contains the seed of a new beginning. What habit will you adopt today to emerge stronger? Chapter 6: Consumer Habits, How Companies Use Them. Your choices aren't as free as you think. Every day, we make choices that seem to be our own. From what to eat to what to buy to what to wear. But what if I told you that many of those choices aren't as spontaneous as you think? Companies have learned to study our habits and, more importantly, to influence them to steer us towards certain behaviors. Charles Duhigg shows us how companies leverage the science of habits to predict our decisions and design marketing strategies that reinforce them. This chapter is a wake-up call. Understanding how our habits are manipulated gives us the power to take back control over them. How companies influence your decisions. The success of many companies is not just based on what they sell, but on their ability to identify and shape the habits of their customers. Duhigg recounts how Target, one of the largest chains in the United States, used purchasing data to predict what products its customers needed, even before they knew it. Here is an inspiring story: Target and a young woman's pregnancy. In one fascinating case, Target analyzed a young woman's purchasing habits and discovered that she was pregnant before her family knew. How did they do it? They studied purchasing patterns such as fragrance-free lotions and calcium supplements, common indicators among pregnant women. Based on this, Target sent him specific offers for expectant parents, tailoring to his needs even before he openly expressed them. This level of precision is no coincidence. Companies collect data to identify signals in your spending habits and use them to design routines that boost their sales. When you are aware of this process, you can start to make more informed decisions and avoid being manipulated. The power of advertising on habits. Advertising plays a crucial role in how companies shape our habits. It's not just about showing a product, but associating it with a cue and a reward that makes it part of your daily routine. Here's an example. Think about how personal care products are promoted. A toothpaste ad doesn't just focus on dental cleaning, but on the fresh feeling you'll get, the reward. Over time, this idea becomes ingrained in your mind, and the habit of brushing your teeth becomes associated with that feeling, reinforcing brand loyalty. How to take back control of your decisions. Knowing that our consumer decisions are influenced by designed habits doesn't mean we're doomed to be manipulated. On the contrary, this knowledge gives us the power to act with greater awareness. Observe your purchasing patterns. Before adding something to your cart, ask yourself if you really need it or if it's just a response to a habit or an attractive offer. Break the cues. If you tend to buy something because it's on sale or because you saw an ad, try to avoid those cues. For example, make a list before you go shopping and stick to it. Redesign your routines. If you buy unhealthy foods as you pass certain sections of the grocery store, change the way you walk through the store to avoid those areas. Here's a thought. Close your eyes for a moment and think about your last purchase. Ask yourself, what motivated you to buy that product? Was it a real need or a response to an advertising-driven habit? Next time you go shopping, do this exercise. Before you grab something off the shelf, stop and reflect. Is it really something you need or are you responding to a cue designed by someone else? Additional story, coffee and consumer habits. A classic example of the power of consumer habits is Starbucks. The chain not only sells coffee, but also an experience that reinforces habits in its customers. From relaxing music to special language for drink sizes, Starbucks has designed an environment that triggers specific signals in your brain, causing you to associate the routine of visiting its stores with the reward of convenience and exclusivity. Starbucks doesn't just sell coffee, it reinforces a habit. And you, too, can create your own cues and rewards for habits that benefit your life. The impact of habits on financial decisions. Consumer habits not only affect what we buy, but also how we manage our money. Many people purchase products or services on impulse, falling into patterns that drain their financial resources. However, you can use this knowledge to create healthier financial habits. Every time you consider a purchase, stop and ask yourself these 3 questions. Is this something I really need? What emotion am I trying to satisfy with this purchase? Can I put off this decision and reflect on it later? This simple exercise can help you develop more conscious consumer habits and reduce unnecessary spending. How this knowledge transforms your perspective. Knowing how companies shape your consumption habits is not only fascinating, but also empowering. Understanding the process allows you to identify when you are acting out of choice and when you are following a pattern designed by someone else. I propose a challenge to you. Today, pay attention to your consumption decisions. Identify at least one impulse purchase that you could avoid. Then, design a strategy to break that routine. This chapter teaches us something crucial. Our consumption decisions are not always as free as we think. Companies have learned to use our habits to their advantage, but when we become aware of this, we can regain control. The next time you find yourself in front of a product or an offer, remember, you have the power to decide. You are not trapped by your habits, and each conscious decision is a step towards a life more aligned with your true values. Chapter 7. Social Movements, the Power of Collective Habits. Collective habits can change the world. Have you ever wondered how a group of people can come together and create change that transforms entire societies? According to Charles Duhigg, social movements don't just come out of nowhere. They are built on collective habits, shared patterns of behavior that foster unity and action. Habits don't just influence individuals, they also have the power to connect communities and mobilize them toward common goals. This chapter explores how social movements use collective habits to achieve lasting impact. How collective habits drive social change. In a social movement, collective habits act as the fabric that binds people together. These shared patterns create a foundation of trust and cooperation that makes change possible. Duhigg identifies 3 key elements for an effective social movement. An individual starting point. One person with an act of courage or resistance can light the spark. Pre-existing social networks. Connected groups that already share habits of interaction. A shift in collective perception. Shared habits transform individual beliefs into a common goal. Inspiring story. Rosa Parks and the Civil Rights Movement. A powerful example of how collective habits drive social change is the story of Rosa Parks. In 1955, Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. This individual act was not only a symbol of resistance, but also the catalyst for a mass movement. Why did her action have such an impact? Rosa Parks was not alone. She was an active figure in her community and was connected to strong social networks, such as churches, clubs, and community organizations. The collective habits of her community, such as attending meetings and holding constant discussions about civil rights, created an environment conducive to mobilization. The bus boycott that followed was sustained by these collective habits. Regular meetings, support networks, and shared strategies kept the movement together. An individual act can light a spark, but collective habits are the fuel that turns that spark into a fire. How social movements create collective habits. Duhigg explains that social movements are effective when they manage to transform individual beliefs into shared actions. To achieve this, communities need to create common rituals. These can be regular meetings, marches, or activities that reinforce unity. Establish a shared purpose. A clear goal helps channel collective energy. Encourage mutual responsibility. When people feel like they are part of a group, they are more likely to act with commitment. Think about how environmental movements have used these principles. Activities like cleaning beaches or planting trees not only create immediate impact, but they also reinforce the collective habit of caring for the planet. The power of social media and technology. In today's world, social media has amplified the impact of collective habits. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram allow communities to connect and coordinate actions on a global scale. Here's an example. The Black Lives Matter movement started as a hashtag, but quickly became a global movement thanks to social media. Digital platforms allowed people to share stories, organize protests, and create a sense of unity based on collective habits like signing petitions, attending marches, and sharing information. How to contribute to positive change through collective habits. You don't need to lead a mass movement to harness the power of collective habits. You can start in your community, your workplace, or even your family. Start a shared habit. It could be something as simple as a weekly meeting to discuss ideas or a support group for a common goal. Foster connection. Social media can be a powerful tool to bring together people with similar interests. Create a clear purpose. Make sure everyone involved understands the goal and how they can contribute. Here's a thought. Close your eyes and think, what communities do I belong to? What habits do we share that could create positive change? What small habit could I introduce today to strengthen those ties? Remember that social change doesn't start with grand gestures. It starts with small habits that connect people and inspire them to act together. Additional story, the domino effect of social movements. Duhigg also discusses how social movements create a domino effect. Once a group develops collective habits, their influence spreads to other groups, amplifying the impact. Here's an example. During the Arab Spring, the use of social media not only connected people within one country, but also inspired similar movements in other nations. This domino effect showed that collective habits have the power to cross borders and transform entire societies. Shared habits don't just connect communities, they can also inspire others to join in the change. How this knowledge transforms your perspective. Understanding the power of collective habits allows you to see social change from a new perspective. It's not just about great leaders or historical events. It's about the small, everyday actions we share with others, and how these can become a movement. I challenge you. Today, identify a collective habit in your community. Maybe it's something as simple as a group of neighbors who meet regularly or coworkers who collaborate on a project. Ask yourself, how can I strengthen this habit and contribute to change? This chapter teaches us that social movements are not accidents. They are the result of collective habits that unite people around a common purpose. From Rosa Parks to modern movements, shared habits have proven to be a powerful force for change. The question now is, what collective habit can you start or reinforce today to make a difference? Chapter 8. Faith in Change, the Importance of Belief. Believing in change is what makes it work. Imagine you've identified a habit you want to change, you've understood the cues that trigger it and the rewards that keep it going, you've even designed a new routine to replace it. But despite all this effort, you feel like something is missing. This is where the essential element Charles Duhigg highlights in this chapter comes in: faith. Faith in change is what turns effort into lasting transformation. It's that belief that change is possible that keeps us on track, even when old habits seem to want to creep back in. Without faith, it's easy to give up at the first hurdle. With faith, we're able to overcome any challenge. Why faith is crucial to changing a habit. When we try to transform a habit, we inevitably face moments of doubt. It can be frustrating, because old patterns often seem stronger than our intentions. In those moments, faith, whether in ourselves, in a system, or in something bigger, becomes our anchor. Duhigg explains that faith has two main functions in habit change. It reinforces our perseverance. Belief in success helps us keep going when things get tough. It reframes our identity. We see ourselves as people capable of change, which reinforces the new habit. Think about the habit of exercising. At first, it may seem difficult, even painful. But if you believe that this effort is contributing to a healthier, stronger version of yourself, you are more likely to keep going. Faith in the outcome, your health, becomes the engine that drives the repetition of the habit until it takes hold. Inspiring story: Alcoholics Anonymous and the Power of Faith. One of the most poignant examples Duhigg discusses is the Alcoholics Anonymous (AA) program. This group has helped millions of people overcome alcohol addiction, and its success is largely based on faith. The AA program incorporates a spiritual element, asking participants to rely on a higher power, whatever that may be for them. This concept of faith helps people believe that change is possible, even when they feel weak or hopeless. Feel supported in the AA community, which reinforces their commitment. Redefine their identity as people in recovery, rather than people controlled by their addiction. Thus, it doesn't matter if your faith is in a spiritual power, in your family, in your friends, or in yourself. The important thing is that you find that source of belief that keeps you strong when you face challenges. How to build faith in change. If you feel like you lack faith in your ability to change, there are ways to cultivate it. Faith isn't something you necessarily have innately, it's something you can develop with practice. Here are some practical tips. Find a community. Surrounding yourself with people who share your goals reinforces your belief in change. If others are achieving it, you can do it too. Celebrate small achievements. Each small step toward change is proof that you are capable. Acknowledge it and use it as evidence to build your faith. Visualize your success. Spend a few minutes a day imagining what your life will be like when you achieve change. This will help you stay motivated. Seek support. Sometimes believing in yourself can be difficult. In those moments, rely on someone close to you to believe in you until you can do it for yourself. Reflection for the listener. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, do I believe I can change? If not, what would help me develop that belief? Who or what can be my source of faith in this process? Remember that change isn't about perfection, it's about perseverance. Even if you stumble, every step forward is a test of your ability to transform your life. Bottom line, habits don't define you, you define your habits. Throughout this book, we've learned something powerful. Our habits aren't an inevitable fate. They're patterns we can understand, redesign, and transform. But change doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience, practice, and, above all, faith. We've explored how habits are formed through the cycle of cue, routine, and reward. The importance of foundational habits in triggering positive change. How crises and social movements can be opportunities to redesign habits. And now, the power of faith as an essential ingredient to sustain any change. Start today by looking at your habits. Identify one you want to change and design a plan to replace it with something more positive. Don't worry about making it perfect, it's time to change. The important thing is to take the first step and trust in the process. Call to action. What habits will you transform today? Think of a concrete action you can take to start your process of change. Share it in the comments and subscribe for more transformative content. Remember, change begins with one step, and that step is within your reach. See you in the next chapter of your personal transformation.